Growing the Future podcast is brought to you by Aberhart Ag Solutions. Join us as we talk to top entrepreneurs about their methods of obtaining success in their endeavors. And now, your host, Dan Aberhart.
I'm very excited to have on the podcast, the Growing the Future podcast today, a gentleman I've been speaking to over the last year or so, I guess, Jeff?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We've been getting to know each other a little bit, and of course, we got to know each other a little bit through social media. I think the first thing that I ever saw of you guys was like a promotional video on agronomy, and I saw you guys, and I was like, wow, they look super cool. Just beautiful people, right? And then the next time that we connected was actually, I got a message from you, and I got to tell you, when I got a message from Jeff Bennett, like, are you in on that Ag Twitter meetup?
Oh yeah.
Like, I am one of the cool kids now.
You weren't. You were out.
I'm like, I finally made it. It's like being picked for dodgeball first after, consecutive losses or something, and you're just like,
Dodgeball is a good idea for the Ag Twitter meetup this year.
well, hey, you can use that and put a quarter in the jar every time you use it. I think you guys created a really cool thing there, and it's always really cool meeting people through social media. And I was thinking about it. Technically, I don't know you that well, but I feel like I know you a lot more because of these new technology platforms.
Absolutely. There's something about meeting someone that you know but you don't know. It's just there's nothing else really like it. It's sort of got almost a celebrity feel to it. No matter how important anybody is on the internet or off the internet, when you meet someone for the first time, there's just a different dynamic to it. And so this last year in July, we did our first one. We're doing it again this year and hoping to have a bunch more people come. But it was probably the highlight of the summer. Honestly, it was a lot of fun. Just clean family fun. We had a bunch of bouncy castles for the kids and the adults to have a few drinks and race your buddy through that. So
yeah, we
also had sumo suits, but they didn't get used. I was hoping a few grievances would get sorted out in front of me, but they didn't. So I guess everyone was too well behaved.
Right. Yeah. So you guys had a lot of activities to get the interaction going. It's probably never a dull moment. I was hoping to get over there, but after everything at Ag in Motion just didn't work out. But I saw Shiloh's tweet about how full her heart was, is the way she put it, after having everybody there. And it's an interesting thing about community. In some ways, we're more connected than ever. In some ways, we're more disconnected. But it's like reverse engineering. Typically, we'll go into virtual space in the new world with an avatar. You're taking people out of their avatars and getting together in person, which is
absolutely. And we really wanted, I've had a few industry people who aren't farmers, like someone in the same position as yourself, kind of a thing, more on the company side of it, say, well, can we come too? And well, absolutely. And well, what should we bring? What should we do? And just bring yourselves. I don't really care who you work for. We're just trying to get to know each other on a legitimate personal level. If you want to talk shop, we'll talk shop. But I mean, there's no trade booth set up. There's no sales pitches going on. There's kegs in the fridge, and whether you like Coors or I forget what the other kind we had, but Coors was the hot. Coors Banquet was the hot keg. So it's just getting together in a setting that's low key, literally just camping in the yard. Mom and Dad's yard is 800 feet from ours. That's where the main farm is, and we had trailers lined up along the bins, all in there, and then had some people camping in our trees, and a few people staying in our house, and some people staying in Mom and Dad's house. And we had a bus that we had booked that brought people to Kindersley to have a hotel. I mean, we had her covered. So the only thing that I'm going to do consciously different this year is not have the crop tour last as long as it did. It was a little long. It was a lot of fun. It was really informative. That's where the industry sort of came together and did their sales pitches. But in a former life, I was a sales rep for a few different companies, and the rules where you need a collared shirt, long pants, no open-toed shoes, don't wear a hat, don't wear sunglasses, eye contact, all that kind of stuff. Throw it out the window. You can wear short sleeves, shorts, sandals, wear sunglasses. That's just the low key sort of attitude we're trying to portray. Lots of good information. Everyone did awesome. Lots of information flowing back and forth. And because of where everyone's from, there's definitely a unique dynamic. And, some people hadn't seen lentils before. We had a pretty decent crop last year, so it was fun to showcase a good crop. Hopefully that happens again next year. But no, it was just the Friday was a tour, and Saturday was a pig roast, and Sunday was breakfast, and everything between that was just good, clean, fun. Lots of laughs, lots of lots of good time. Just good, clean fun.
Awesome. How did you guys come up with the concept? Like, what was the overall purpose when you started?
It was Shiloh's idea, 100% Shiloh's idea. I didn't really want to do it.
Why didn't you want to do it? Are you into
it was a lot of stuff to pull together. Everything from, we ran a concert, Janelle James sang on Saturday night. All the things that go along with that. We had generators, we had lights, we had bathrooms, we had, like I said, a cooler trailer for the beer and the food. Our garage was full of food. Just a lot to pull together. And I think Saturday night, I think I was in bed by 10. I was emotionally drained. Physically, I was.
Were you asleep with your Kenny Rogers beard on, and you're just?
That wasn't me. That was an Albertan.
So. I thought that was you in the Kenny Rogers.
Nope. My beard's real. His was fake.
That's true. That's true. If you were singing Islands in the Stream, it would probably give you a certain level of authenticity given your height. Well,
Sean, I saw most of it. Sean and Leslie is who did that. They came in the house and were changed, and they were readjusting the air pressure on the balloons for the Dolly Parton costume in the house. And then they went and I don't know if you can technically call it singing, but they went and stood on stage for a while. But
so there was some karaoke.
Karaoke. Not sure if they're going to do that again next year or not, but be a lot of the same old crowd, hoping to grow it quite a bit. But yeah, like Shiloh's idea was literally just to do what we did, just to get people together, give them an excuse to get together with, hopefully low cost. We had a lot of sponsorship, a lot of help with it, and it all came together perfectly. And so we were cleaning up Sunday or Monday, bringing all the trailers back, the generators, the beer that was left over, just trying to get a handle on it, and you just realize how much fun it was. It was just legitimately a good time. So
how do people get connected with tickets or sponsorship? Like, what does 2019 look like?
I would like to sort of run it the same way. We had an Eventbrite page for tickets, and I think tickets were $10. That was just literally to make a commitment from people. I mean, it's not like it's a huge dollar amount to get people to come. On the sponsorship side, we sort of decided that, like, we had signs up. We made signs for everyone who donated or sponsored from the companies. We had lawn signs. So, I mean, there was a definite presence. We had a big banner made up with all the levels of sponsorship that people did. And that's sort of how we ran it, was just a tiered sponsorship, a dollar amount. Some companies would donate like the pancake mix for the breakfast on Sunday. Some people donated like Megs and Liam donated the pig for the pig roast, and Daryl Francu bought the pig from them, as just a lot of farmers helping farmers. But then there was the whole company side of it where, people would get involved. And there wasn't as much company involvement as I would have liked. People did their sales pitch, did their skill, try and make some gains for them through the crop tour, but a lot of them didn't stick around. Some of them did, but I just sort of wanted everyone to take off their golf shirts and put something more comfortable on and have a casual conversation about some of these things and where agriculture is. And just, a lot of it was family oriented. People brought their kids and kids all played together. But yeah, it was a nice opportunity to bring industry, farmers, everybody in between that. Next year, I know I've got some relatives coming, I think, that have nothing to do with the farm or agriculture at all. And it's just turning into an opportunity to get together. And the timing is pretty decent. Obviously, some of the sales reps might be a little bit tired after the week at Ag in Motion, but hopefully they can come and relax. And, it's not a sales pitchy type of event. So hopefully everyone can just get to know each other on a very, very level level.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting community. If you think of like a generation or two ago, is likely that people got together for different reasons. Maybe there was like they're building a barn or they were helping each other with harvest, and maybe there's a certain element to that now. But it's fascinating that with the Twitter community, you can feel really close to people that geographically are really far away from you. And really traveling now, really to go 5 hours somewhere for the weekend in a vehicle isn't a big deal anymore. It's not like you got to feed the horses, brush them, and get them all coaxed into hitting the rocky trail or anything like in the old days.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you using social media, specifically? I think Twitter you're more active on as a farmer and as a human being.
As a farmer, I think it's a great way to pass information back and forth. You sort of get trial years out of each other almost, and your experiences. Like if someone's using a program from one company or a product from one company, you sort of get firsthand information from it. I mean, it's sort of a transparency type atmosphere, I guess, from it. As a person, it's reverse isolation. We've got a lot. I mean, my nearest neighbors, my parents, and besides that, people are miles away. So it's peership. It just takes the edge off the loneliness sometimes, and even it's almost a buddy system. You put some long hours in the tractor and send a little tweet out to see who's up and have a conversation when it's 1 a.m. and you're tired and need some company when everyone else is sleeping. So there's definitely that side of it too. And the camaraderie, I guess, a lot of it is cheering people on. Ag's not exactly an easy profession, whether you're a farmer or on the other side of the desk. And it just helps to have people in the same boat as you be able to talk about anything, really. I mean, that's the thing about Ag Twitter is there's not really there's no moderator, even though maybe sometimes there should be. There's no set rules. It's sort of a jump in and see where you swim to, and you see, there's certain common people that you automatically are drawn to in the community, and those people become friends. And then, once you meet them and meet their family, and it makes the season not so long. It makes the hours not so lonely sometimes. So it's just sort of an all-encompassing tool that I remember when I joined Twitter, I had a buddy who was on there, and I thought Twitter was for girls, and that there was nobody really wanted to. I didn't care. I didn't know who to follow, and I think I remember when I passed 600 followers, that was a pretty big deal. I was picking rocks. I remember that. I got my 600th follower, and it just sort of ballooned from there. And I realized that this is where I want to see this go. Is I don't really care to follow an NHL player or follow anyone with a blue check mark beside their name. It was the fact that this was a tool to actually get to know people in a way that was like texting them. Essentially these people, you trust them to a certain extent, and pass information back and forth. It was something that really ballooned for me, I guess. Probably 3 years ago is when I really sort of took off. And to me, it's not necessarily the on the surface part of Twitter that I enjoy. It's the behind the scenes part. It's the the actual friendships that you have, the group chats, you have a whole different dynamic that goes on sort of below the surface with what sort of got brought out from Twitter as a social media tool.
Absolutely. So just for your information, Alyssa, Jeff has 13,000 followers now on Twitter.
I think so, something like that.
That's crazy. And the interesting thing is how, prolific and abundant the people in agriculture are on the platform, and everything ranging from like really sophisticated questions about agronomics or equipment to like, hey, I'm bored, I want to stir up some shit on Twitter.
Quite literally, yeah.
Isn't it fascinating what people publicly present on the internet that's there forever? Doesn't it blow your mind? How did we get there? What is going on?
I don't know. When I tweet something, I go through a little bit of a checklist, I guess. If I'm angry, that checklist is short, but my wife has my notifications on, so I'm quite aware if I tweet too much that she will either tell me to be quiet or
Is there an emoticon that just like when she's telling you to be quiet on Twitter? Is there a specific?
She texts me. She'll text me anyway, and then my dad is also on Twitter, so I
see
can't.
That is that Hap?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I'm not sure if his notifications are on for me or not, but I haven't necessarily taken a step back from Twitter whatsoever, but I don't tweet as much as I used to. There's just, I guess life's a little busier. Winters aren't as I don't know. It's just, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes now than what there used to be. It used to be everything was like everyone was in a room shouting at each other, and that was Twitter. And now I think there's a lot more closed door meetings happening than what maybe there used to be. So, but yeah, you're right. When you look at someone's tweets and you can go through all of them and you think, well, it's a good thing you already have a job, because I'm not sure you'd get one if you didn't.
Well, it can come back to haunt you literally. I mean, people now in today's world are getting accosted publicly when they take a position if they have some crazy tweets in their past that may have been even deleted, but I don't think they ever go away. But I'm fascinated by the nature of conversation now. And I just wonder if you actually had these people together in a room, how the conversation would go after some of these Twitter fights.
I look at Twitter too as if I'm going to say something, I would say something to that person's face for the most part. I don't know. There's a certain aspect to it where it's a faceless. I don't even know what the right word is, but there's no responsibility behind what you're saying to some extent, because it's just the internet. But I think that's sort of coming to light where it's not. It is being taken in a way that someone would say it to your face, or that you're serious. That's your stance on it. You're not joking. It's not just the internet. It's a serious, matter of fact representation of what you are portraying as a person. And I think that is something that not everyone has latched on to when it comes to Twitter or social media in general. But what I like about Twitter is that there's so many, especially ag Twitter. I mean, there's still people that you see that have been on Twitter for the same amount of time as you. I've never heard of, and they've got great accounts, and they're in their own little circles. And I think that, the more voices that we have, even just communicating, finding ways to talk to each other is fascinating. It's a big social experiment. Like you said, if you had these people in the same room that didn't necessarily get along in that context, would they still have the same standpoint if that person was standing right across from them? Probably not, for the most part. But I think that's sort of what separates, the reason why you want to talk to some people and why you don't, and why I talk to people and why I don't is just that. If I can't picture myself having an honest conversation with you in real life, why would I talk to you on a social media platform?
I'm just curious, Alyssa, from a point of view of somebody who's not in agriculture. and a millennial as such. I hate to say that because there's all kinds of connotations like, don't lump me in, don't stereotype me as a millennial. But are you using Twitter at all? Like, is this a thing?
I have Twitter. I think I have about 7 followers.
Really?
I don't really use it, no.
Yeah. That's wild. So what are you using? Are you using Snapchat or something? Maybe Jeff might not even know.
I do use Snapchat. I find like I never used to use Snapchat until I went to college, and I went to college with quite a few people that are younger than me. I'm 25, so I went to school with a lot of like 18, 19-year-olds, and that's all they use. Like when it comes to family or like my whole family has Facebook, like Facebook's really prominent with businesses. Like I use Facebook a lot. But the younger generation doesn't really use Facebook. Like a lot of people that I met didn't even have Facebook, and that's how they communicate. They use Snapchat. It's quick. And I think maybe that's what they like about it too, is that there is no record with Snapchat, so people can get a little bit mouthier and a little bit riskier with what they say, and there's no risk to it.
Yeah.
But is there no record, and is there no risk to Snapchat?
There's no record, but you can still screenshot. It tells them if you screenshot, but what are you going to do about it, right? So
I think it's still on their servers, though. I know that Mark Cuban had started an app called Cyberdust. I don't think it went anywhere, but they argued that literally it was encrypted and it like disappeared and nobody could ever track anything pictures that you sent.
I think that's funny too, because a lot of people that use social media or any internet platform, like we generally don't have a very good understanding of the inner workings of networks and servers and all that stuff. Like even me, like I went to school for technology, and that's not my specialty. I wouldn't be able to tell you, but who's to say that all that stuff isn't stored somewhere?
I think it's like farm data. You're damn right it is. I mean, and whatever reps can get up and say whatever they want, but all that data is being stored somewhere in a giant server in California, like under a waterfall or something like that. I can guarantee it. I mean, I just, if you say something on the internet, it's true, right, Jeff? I mean, that's
exactly. That's an Abraham Lincoln quote, isn't it?
Imagine, I was just thinking about that this morning. I don't know, it's kind of a tangent. I've been a little bit obsessed with the Wild West lately, mostly because of Red Dead Redemption 2, but I started watching the Ken Burns documentary on Netflix about the Wild West, and I was just thinking about how many changes there were, as people moved west, and so many different disparate cultures came together, and so many different things happened, and the rate of change, just when they had ponies and newspapers, and eventually they got landlines and stuff like that. It's amazing the progress. But I was just kind of thinking how fast our world is changing and how quickly ideas are disseminated, and some of the new thinking in agriculture, some of the movements that we're seeing, and I know you guys are well aware of that, and you're kind of involved with some of the people that got some really positive messaging and agriculture. But it's kind of making me wonder, information is being disseminated so quickly, like top areas of conversation are just exploding. I was going to ask you, because I didn't watch the Super Bowl, and I don't fully get all what happened with like this Bud Light commercial and stuff, but like what is going on? It seems like every company out there now is jumping on this virtue signaling, where it's like displaying good characteristics in public, for advantageous marketing. Like Bud Light's got some horses powered by wind or something I saw, or what's going on with this commercial that everybody's up in arms about?
I watched the commercial without sound. I had a kid sleeping on me, so I maybe don't understand the full amount of it, but essentially they're saying that they don't have corn syrup in their beer, which they didn't say is good or bad, but the connotation was there. And I think that's 2 points to that. One, I think that companies are finding that they can separate themselves, market themselves by, like you said, this virtue signaling, this fear-mongering type of sales pitches, where they're not really saying anything. They're just saying what they don't or do have that separates them. And and they didn't say corn syrup is bad. They just said they don't have it. But like I said, the mindset that you as a viewer of this commercial are supposed to have in the eyes of Bud Light is that corn syrup is not bad. Well, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with corn syrup. It's alcohol that you're drinking. It's not like you're eating a kale plant that's super good for you anyway. I don't know. And the other side of it is, my second point is this type of marketing will only last so long, in my opinion, unless the world is stupider than I think it is, which is entirely possible. But I think people just get wore out by certain methods of advertising, certain ways that companies do things. And I think that eventually this type of sales is going to wear out on people, because they will look at, it's like they look at the news now. People don't look at the news for information. News is it's sort of, it's even gone past that, the second or third second Anchorman movie, where they realize, you know what I mean, where all of a sudden news is, they got a high speed chase and it's really not a big deal, but they make it a big deal.
Sensationalism.
It was done as a mock kind of a thing, but I mean, it's even become more full blown than that. Like, the news now is not a method of pushing information through. It's pushing a message through. And you look at the reason why people, or why a news media outlet would have power, it's because of who is giving them that power, and it's not the people. You're not getting good information from the news anymore. And I think that people are realizing that this big world that's out there is not necessarily a handshake agreement anymore. You know, I don't care that Bud Light has corn syrup or not. I don't really drink Bud Light, so I'm not going to start because they don't have corn syrup. And I think a lot of people look at messaging like that now, and it's not. You read the comments on some of these social media posts and from that commercial, and first of all, they're pissing off corn farmers, which I assume would be a major market for them. It's beer, you know. Why would you put a certain customer base at odds with you? But again, these companies don't really care. They're looking at the person who is looking for a healthy alternative to their. It just doesn't make sense anymore. And I think it's going to wear on people. They are just going to see through, unless they're stupider than I think they are, which again is entirely possible.
I think that industry is looking at the success certain marketing campaigns have had to the end user that have delivered results in the double or triple digits, and everybody's jumping on that bandwagon. I think you're right that moment in time where that marketing is effective could pass, because the public gets blasé on things that you hammer them over the head with long term. But I'm concerned that there's a huge disparity between what the food companies are pitching and what we in agriculture are pitching. And we've got agriculture boycotting companies. I mean, we're 2% of the market, but I mean, maybe you'll boycott Bud Light at Ag Twitter meetup, but on the other hand, their campaigns are so effective in increasing their sales, they can't resist. And I'm wondering, like, where you're kind of a public figure as such in farming, and kind of a fresh young face, if you would, you know, family man, homegrown, cares about the environment and this and that, I'm sure on certain levels. How do we bridge the gap? Somebody on Twitter said the other day, until those companies stop telling their stories or tell different stories in our favor, there's absolutely no use in anybody in agriculture even bothering to advocate. Do you believe that?
That's 100% been my mindset for years. I don't, but you sort of said it yourself. If we boycott Bud Light, which I don't grow corn, so I don't really care. Corn.
No, you got it. Boycott
Bud Light. If we boycott Bud Light.
No, Bud Light. Like, you should have signs at Ag Twitter now.
I've never liked Bud Light, so let's leave it at that. When you, as a small individual or a group of people, when you boycott something, it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't know. I am surprised A&W still has stores in small communities because they're serviced by the agriculture community. But obviously someone still buys mama burgers. They don't care if it's got hormones or not. But I think it's sort of the same thing as if someone with 7 followers on Twitter says something on Twitter, do you say anything to them, and you're just going to draw attention to them? You just leave them alone. Yeah, us fighting over, some people need to be, what's the right word? Put in their place, I guess, when it comes to certain mindsets. But at the same time, do you really want to draw attention to what they're saying? And no one's going to notice them if you don't. So what does it matter? Or there's 2 mindsets to that, I guess. But my whole take on do I need to fight against Anheuser-Busch with Budweiser, Bud Light, whatever, because they don't use corn syrup? No, it's not worth my time. I don't have the mental capacity to care. And I think that that's when things become personal, that's when they need to stop. But when things are done for a marketing reason, have your mindset. Do I agree with Bud Light's messaging about corn syrup? No, it doesn't make any sense to me. You're selling alcohol. You're not a healthy alternative. Do I care that A&W uses hormone-free Australian beef? Yeah, I mean, it's not right. But am I going to say anything? No, I'm just not going to eat there. And if I don't think that we have enough power as a small percentage of the population to do anything. Do we need to have a mindset? Do we need to talk about it? For sure. But do we need to make a big deal about it? I don't think it matters. I think that we need to go about it in a positive way. Instead of being anti Bud Light or anti A&W, we become pro something, pro companies that use Canadian beef, pro companies that, support Saskatchewan, Manitoban, Albertan barley growers that use our products, and be loud about that. Just don't draw attention to the negative side of things. Instead of being anti, be pro.
Right.
And go about it that way, because in the long run, Anheuser-Busch doesn't care if I drink Bud Light. And they don't care if I tell people that I don't care if I drink Bud Light. There's the power of the positive, it outweighs the power of the negative 4-1 in my mindset. And I think that, if we find companies that believe in what we as an industry are doing and going about it the right way, the responsible way, the sustainable way, we become part of their messaging that's not anti hormone, it's pro sustainable, grown, healthy cows, good source of protein burger. We have a small herd of buffalo, and that meat has essentially always replaced our red meat in our diet in our home. But I mean, when I go to a restaurant, I'll have a big slab of prime rib beef and I will enjoy the heck out of it, because I think that our industry in Canada, when it comes to food production, is one of the best in the world. And that's not because I think it's poor in other parts of the world. It's just that's the industry that I'm in. That's my everyday opinion of food in Canada, is that it's safe. And if something is organically grown, to me, that absolutely means nothing. It means it's marketed in a different way than what the food that I grow is. And I don't necessarily care if you're an organic producer and you want to make more money and you have a good farm and you're a good farmer. I mean, it's your farm. Who am I to say you should or shouldn't do or produce or market? As long as you don't say, I grow chemical-free food, I don't really have an opinion when it comes to how food is produced. I have an opinion on how it's marketed. Mm-hmm. And that's what's always bothered me about A&W, about, when you look at McDonald's and you look at A&W, which one is telling you the more positive message? To me, it should always go towards the company with the positive message. We support Canadian beef farmers, or we use hormone-free. Which one's fear-mongering? Which one is virtue signaling? Go with the opposite one. Go with the one that's promoting their own brand. And to me, it's sort of that way with any product. You feel a lot better using a product that's, been marketed in a positive way rather than an anti way. And I think that is my hope is that will become the more common method of these big companies going. And I hope it sort of filters down from the big companies, or maybe it'll come from the smaller companies, realizing that that's their niche. That's their way of becoming different. They're not telling you you're bad and guilting you into using their product. They're telling you the benefits the way it used to be. They're telling you the benefits of their products, and it becomes your decision instead of a guilt-ridden mama burger.
I get it. Yeah, I totally agree. Brad Wall said an interesting thing, that there's technically more Saskatchewan ingredients in the Beyond Burger at A&W than in their hamburgers.
I haven't had the Beyond Burger.
Either. It was sold out. I wanted to try one anyways.
And I do find it interesting, though, as grain farming and cattle farming, you'd think that as a grain farmer, you would be more for, the product that is using the food that is using your product, the Beyond Burger. But I think it just shows that the way that we appreciate our industry or our peers in the industry is how things are sold, and it doesn't even necessarily come down to eating a lentil burger. It comes down to eating the product that is made, and marketed in a way that follows our own morals, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen that Penn and Teller episode of Bullshit, where they're picking on people that do a lot of recycling. And they go to your typical Southern California neighborhood where people they just feel so good about saving the environment. And they roll out bin after bin after bin until there's like 7 or 8 multicolored bins down the row. And they've got, this is where you need to separate, your lightly soiled toilet paper. And this is where, animal goods go, and they just kept agreeing, and it's like the more they could separate out the recycling, the more they were doing for the environment, but it had no physical impact. And what bothers me is when people are presenting a nice green bin with the recycling logo, but it goes in the garbage, and the things that get done are more political than moving the needle substantially in the real world. And that kind of drives me crazy. But I'm wondering, who as a farmer now, and with all the exposure and technology and connectedness of the world, who is your customer and how are you catering to them as a producer, right where you are, who you are today?
I might be a little bit different. It's not that I don't care. I don't view my farm is a certain percentage. The barn, the 100 and some year old farm, the 4th generation, want to pass it down to the next, the romantic side of farming. That is definitely part of the job that I enjoy. And I look at what I grow. Lentils are most likely going to India. Canola is it could be domestic. It could be sold to China, hopefully. Or barley, which would, for our barley goes to Japan. Our barley that we grow, the type that we grow, is made into beer or made into malt and is a Japan only product. So it's not that I don't know where my products are going, and not that I don't care. Wheat is a product that we started growing for the first time again this year, and it was the crop that laid under snow 4 times. So, the last field of harvest wasn't the most fun. But I mean, you look at, I don't view my customer as someone buying food in a grocery store. And I think that that's a lot of people, they want their customer to be happy and smiling and pick up the product that has your ingredients in it. And I guess that's a certain part of it. But I think that because the world is so big now, to think that you have any say or influence specifically about the product being sold. I don't know what Indian family is going to be eating the food that has my lentils as an ingredient. And I guess it doesn't really matter. I view my farm as a business. What I grow, I don't care if or what or who is using my product. I focus more on the product. And I think that, as you know, it's sort of the same thing with the food messaging. If I can do the best job of growing the most with the least on my own farm and make my farm the most money, long-term and short-term, and balance all those things out, that makes me successful. So like the romanticized version of, you know, a mom or a dad buying their kid my food or my products as an ingredient in their food. It doesn't, not that there isn't an importance to it, but I don't really care. You know, like, I don't have the farmers feed the world mentality. You know, this time of year it's minus 35. I'm very grateful that we have an oil industry. I'm not based off wind or solar or, well, it's not that I hate the environment. It's not that I have my diesel truck running all day outside so it stays warm for me when I get into it. But I guess there's got to be some sort of common sense to this. And I think, I wouldn't view, obviously things are pulled through from the customer. And if the customer is saying they want whatever, naturally sourced lentils or organic lentils, to me, because in my mindset, I don't see a difference between organic and non-organic besides price and marketing. You may as well sell GPS auto steer seeded lentils versus having to steer the whole field. I mean, that's sort of where that's where it is in my mind. And long story short, I don't trust the customer to make the right decision anyway. Yeah. You know, that's not, they are so influenced by this virtue signaling, by this marketing, that there's two ways of going about it. One, you fly by the wind, by the seat of your pants, and you produce what they want to produce or what they want to buy, which, you know, is next to impossible to be sustainable. You're chasing a dollar, you're chasing the buck. Or do you focus and concentrate on growing a high quality, you know, product that your business is going to make the most money on? And to me, it's a business. Farming is romantic. Farming is hard work. Yes, farmers feed the world, but like I said, I think there's a lot of industries that deserve as much credit as we do for what we do. And I think that because we're so small, we have such little control, as long as we focus on what we're doing and know why we do it. I think that's probably the other important side of it is, you know, why do we use the same amount of fertilizer that our dad did or our granddad did? And it's, you know, that's starting to change, where we have these technologies to be able to find out what that certain part of our field, what the actual potential is, and we can measure it, and we can start to spoon feed these plants or these areas of our fields that and we start to know, and we can actually calculate, make in-season decisions to be able to me, that is the part of agriculture right now that is exciting to me, is taking all these things that are journal articles when I was in university and having an actual physical product or methodology to be able to measure and react. And the react part is key, because it's really cool to know what your field yielded and what part of the field yielded what it did. But unless you can backtrack and figure out why and measure, you're never going to be able to change it. And I think that the way that ag is now is it's so multifaceted. I mean, and you've got so many people after the same $1 or $2 an acre, $10 an acre, that you really have to be careful and know the business side of it before you get excited about the romantic side of it. Because you can be the happiest farmer in the world, but unless you know where your business is at, you're not going to be able to be farming very long unless you live in the Red River Valley, and anyone can farm there. So
Absolutely anyone can farm with any methodology and become incredibly rich over time in the Red River Valley. I think that's a statement.
There's parts of Alberta like that too. When I worked in Alberta, I thought, you have how many % organic matter? Jesus.
It's different. It's a different culture, let me tell you. I mean, geographically working over a large area, that's one of the things that I come to love and appreciate about what I do. And I was going to say we should have like thank agricultural salesman day, because I'm telling you, that's a pretty tough gig some days too, because I know you've been on the retail end of the stick. And that can be a challenging job too. But
I just want to interrupt 1 second.
Go ahead.
I don't understand why everybody needs a pat on the back for what they do. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, do something different. You know what I mean? It's nice to be appreciated.
Jeff, I want you to validate me. That's all. Like,
well, I know. I'm telling you, I'm not going to.
I want you to. I want you to say, "Damn, best damn podcast host and agricultural salesman." We should thank podcast hosts.
Yeah.
We should thank agricultural salespeople. We should thank Alyssa. We should thank millennials. We should all be thanking each other because it all. But I was just going to circle back. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've
interrupted you.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's all good. I love it. And I got a very specific question for where you're going there. I love it. But Alyssa, just give us this like mind-blowing perspective of other human beings outside of our agricultural matrix that we don't always get. But you go to the store, you make choices. You're new to agriculture, but I sense you're like a sponge. You're like, whoa, like these people in ag, like what is the deal? But when you went to the store before and you see all this marketing, and now you're seeing this like other perspective of the marketing, like how are you making choices with your food, and how are you viewing farmers now that you're getting involved with ag?
Well, it's definitely been like you were saying, just the couple weeks that I've been here has been super eye-opening to how much goes on in the background and how much there is that as a consumer you would have no idea. Like the average consumer has no idea about this stuff. And like Jeff was saying, you know, we listen to what the media tells us as generally, right? Like, so people are going for the organic, they're going for what's marketed as a good product without really knowing what's gone into that product. And I know for myself, like, I don't really go for the whole organic marketing thing. I like to try and find stuff that's grown in Canada. But I mean, aside from that, like, we don't really know. I think it's important for us to tell the story and try and get that message across to the average person, because the average person has no idea. They're just kind of running blind and trying to make the best choices they can with not very much information.
One thing I don't get about the whole food thing here, and that people educating, like, isn't nutrient density a factor? Like, and they're not. I think some of the metrics that were coming out in the New Canada Food Guide, I've seen it very, very briefly. Didn't look at it, but they're measuring like environmental impact on these different foods. So maybe you would choose one thing over the other on the breakfast table because of the, you know, carbon footprint or God knows what. And yet at the same time, like, are we really having a conversation about how many micronutrients are packed into this head of wheat that's going into our belly, when some of these systems aren't packing this food full of nutrients? Like, wouldn't that be a good metric for human beings?
I think that there should be more responsibility, like we were talking about earlier. You know, the farmers have a good message, but the companies selling the food have a completely different message. And that's the message that the consumers are getting. That's what they're reading, is what they see on the package. And that's not always necessarily the important information, but it's the information that's going to either trigger fear or catch their eye. So it's not always necessarily the most transparent marketing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this has been discussed a lot in the industry. I was just wondering if there was any solutions. And, you know, we try and present like a positive message. And one of my huge overarching long-term goals is like, how do we make modern agricultural conventional farmers super cool? And like, I think guys like yourself, Jeff, are super cool. And I just want to know more about your operation and stuff and how you guys do things. And I don't think the farmers are being vilified. I think the majority of the vitriol is being expressed towards big corporate companies that have maybe less than scrupulous practices in some people's minds when it comes to the story they tell. And I started watching that thing about, I think it was Dow with the Teflon. I mean, the whole Teflon thing, anyways, you go down rabbit trails. But let's move away from the stuff maybe we don't have as much control over and drill down, Jeff. You're talking about your farm as a business. If you're looking at being in the top 5% of farmers, what is the biggest thing that you're focused on right now to make your business better?
There's a couple things. Start with sort of everyday, what I do every day. Not that I'm in the top 5%, and not that I'm necessarily trying to be. I mean, benchmarking yourself is always good, but I think until you know what your farm land is capable of, and treating it the way that it needs to be treated and understanding, and, you know, some of it is risk taking, but there's always improvements to be made. One thing I do literally almost every day is update my bank statements on a cash flow. I probably spend a couple hours every couple days on my computer. Obviously not when I'm seeding, and obviously not when it's the busy season, but, you know, I will try and get to my computer once a day, and just to know what is going out, what is going in, how much is left, what I have left to sell, what I have marketed. And, you know, it's you know, I think, I don't know how you measure yourself as a top 5% producer, because I think every farm is incredibly different, but I think what you can do is just improve. And not that I've made all the right decisions either. I mean, I'm 33 years old. I've only been farming for, I think this is my 6th year. So it's not like I have all the answers. I'm not telling a farmer who's put his 40th crop in that he should look at his computer every day because he's in his farm's different than mine. But for something that I do is I have a good understanding of what I have as far as tangible numbers, whether it's bushels left, bushels sold, dollars in, dollars out, loans, all that kind of stuff, and how that affects the end of my month, how that affects the end of my year. And from there, you can kind of move things around and play with it and, you know, make decisions. Can I afford to update my grain cart or my air cart this next year? Would it make sense to wait a little bit longer? Do I need a hired man? When can I afford a hired man? Those are decisions that should be thought about throughout the growing season, throughout the year. The other side of it, the everyday side of it, one thing I think that sets our farm apart, that's been passed down from my granddad to my dad and to me, is the maintenance side of it. And again, not that our stuff spends a bunch of time in the shop, but to know what has been serviced and what needs to be serviced, and to spend a little bit of extra money perhaps to save breakdowns, you know, be ready for the season when it comes. And again, we've had lots of breakdowns. Our farm isn't perfect, but it's just those little decisions that you make every day. And I think that there's always the earlier generation in your head, and you need to sort of listen to them. One thing my granddad taught me and my dad is, you'll never be closer to that rock. You may as well pick it. And that was drilled into my dad, and that was drilled into me. And, you know, it's just one of those, and that's sort of a really good analogy for our mindset on our farm, is that, you know, if there's a job to be done, do it well. Again, not that I'm some shining example. I'm wearing shorts right now. I'm not outside.
Why am I having you on the podcast then, Jeff? Like, really? Come on.
I don't know. I have a really good PR. But no, I think that if you are so worried about what a produce or what a consumer is going to pick off the shelf and whether it contains your ingredients, it's the same thing as whether I should phone Bud Light and tell them be nice to my corn growing farmers in the South. They don't care. And until that messaging switches, we have the great advantage that there are 7 billion people on the earth, and that's not necessarily going down, and they're not getting very much more, if any, land available. I'm tired of people saying that we grow cheap food. I mean, you talk about negative connotations. Cheap isn't good. There are so many steps between when I put the seed in the ground and when it is in somebody's belly, that to pick one or two of those apart and call them more important or less important, and to legitimately have an impact on that end consumer, I'm just not sure here. Ag chemical companies don't take many small farmers on trips. They will either take the retail, who influences the farmer's decision, or they will take the big farmer who farms a lot more acres that makes a difference to their bottom line. Why should farmers care if some consumer is buying their product or not? That's not who we should be targeting. It doesn't make sense. It would be exhausting. We are what percent of the population in Canada, what percent of the population in America, to think that we can influence the rest of the 40-some million people in North America? That's not where we should be spending our energy. We should have a positive message. We should know the ins and outs of our industry, but to say that to every individual consumer, it would be exhausting. Should we know that message? Yes. Should we say it? Yes. But to have that as our focal point and think we're going to change the end result is naive, in my opinion. I mean, like I said, my grain probably doesn't end up in Canada for the most part. Most of it probably doesn't. So, I mean, do I care that somebody is, looking at organic versus non-organic in a grocery store? Probably not, but they might not even have a non-organic option, or they might not even, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many decisions that happen after the seed is grown to before it ends up in someone's dinner plate. I'm just not sure that the consumer is the one that we should be targeting. I really don't. I think that if we want to have a marketable product, it should be on the merits of that product. If you want to pull the romanticized version in, absolutely. The red barn on the, prairie with, a husband and wife holding your kids' hands as you walk through a wheat field. Sure. I think that has lots of great connotations. It's probably why farmers are respected or trusted when it comes to professions, but people don't trust their food, and it's not because of the farmer. It's because they're told not to trust it. And that is a government or a large company that has something to gain from creating that fear. So I think that we just sort of hold tight, and eventually the consumer or the customer will be tired of that type of marketing, and they will look for a truth or a positive product. And that's where we've always been. That's my 2 cents. And I don't think we're going to go broke waiting.
Right. No, I appreciate that sentiment, and I agree. And even, talking to somebody like Alyssa, like, how would you educate somebody like Alyssa as a young consumer on what we do in agriculture enough to impact her eating decisions without having her work in an agricultural company? I mean, just try and bridge that gap. You're right. You'd be spending tremendous amounts of energy with very little return. For you guys on the farm, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a little bit of a triumvirate going on there. You have yourself and your father, and your wife is very involved in the farm as well. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah. So well, Dad has 2 farming companies. One of them I've been farming, and we rent from some very good landlords, very close family friends. Mm-hmm. So my farm is about 3 acres of land that we farm. This is Dad's last year of farming, so it'll be quite the transition after this year. We're really hoping it's a good one of the best ever to send him off. He deserves to end on that note. So, but yeah, moving forward, or for this year, it'll be Dad and myself for the everyday stuff. Maybe more myself than what Dad is used to or wants to. But yeah, Mom helps out, and Shiloh is an absolute keystone to the whole operation. Just her ability to run anything and just that sort of support system is key when it comes to running an operation. But I think that where she sits is, where she wants to be. I think that she likes to be involved. And she ran a combine the entire harvest. She was out there at 1 o'clock in the morning when we finished that last day, and she ran the hat through the combine. So she actually finished harvest. So it was, and seeding, she'll run things around, bring fertilizer, bring seed. She's pretty integral. So I'm lucky to have a partner like her.
Yeah. What are your guys' roles, or what's your kind of unique abilities on the farm?
Well, I think like I said, the farm is more than just the mom and pop operation than it used to be. And so Shiloh is not from a farm. As a agronomist or a business decision maker, she's probably more gifted than I am in that regards. But she also has a lot larger interest perspective, or whatever the word is. Her interests are not just in farming. So she has lots of projects she has on the go, and lots of things she wants to have her sit still on the piece of equipment is sometimes, but she's good at it. She's a good operator. But our roles, I guess, if you want to call them that, I guess the everyday operator would be myself. Dad would be an everyday operator, and Shiloh would help out in the busy seasons, seeding, spraying, harvest. But she also plays that VP of operations role, if you want to call it that. When we make agronomic decisions, she's a part of that, and usually she's right. So it's nice to have that support system. Pretty lucky. I mean, Dad's still farming. Mom helps out when she can. Shiloh has as much knowledge as I do, or training or experience, I guess. So my brother-in-law is my local account manager at my retail. So most decisions may pass through quite a few really good minds to have the right decision be made. And not that we all agree all the time, but usually we get close every time. So it's a juggling act to make a decision sometimes, but usually it's, if a new product has come out, or a new methodology, or increasing fertilizer rates to gain a higher yield, if we think we've got the potential, or choosing crops to grow. I mean, there's a lot of discussion that happens. You've got Dad with the experience, you've got Shiloh with the knowledge, and you've got, Mike with the knowledge, and myself sometimes to pull it together. I think that's sort of where my strength is, I guess, is taking the information and regurgitating in a way that brings all those things together and actually makes sense. Not that it's always going to work that way, but it's a pretty unique farm situation, I think, and one that I hope becomes more commonplace, where you have roles that aren't necessarily gender specific. They're more experience, skill, and knowledge coming into play, where the correct decision is made. There's a lot less ego involved. There's a lot less baggage involved in a decision-making process when you have that many people involved. But when it comes down to it, it's usually what makes the most business sense for the farm. It's fun. It's a fun time to be farming. We've had some good years. We've had some bad years. So that experience comes into play, and you're not necessarily chasing a dollar. You're trying to make the right decision long term as well as short term. So yeah, it's Shiloh and I have a unique situation, I think, but I think it's one that's becoming more commonplace in the industry.
you're handling the cash. How are you doing that? Are you doing cash or accrual? Are you doing projections? How do the projections look? Are you looking at cost per bushel, cost per acre? Can you just give us the nuts and bolts of what you do there?
For me, being a young, well, I got quite a few white hair. I can see myself in the camera here.
Young, getting older.
Young-ish.
You're youngish.
To me, yeah, exactly. To me, cash is my number one resource, precious resource, if you will, and one that needs to be managed the most cautiously. We have, like I said, we've had some decent years where we're able to sort of step into the role of the full-time only farmer, where our farming operation will be the one paying all the bills. My books run on a cash basis. Have a really good accountant in Warman, and I literally just talked to him on the phone before I talked to you. So I mean, that's another partner to talk about that. We bring in that has the knowledge and doesn't get us in trouble if any decision that we make isn't necessarily the right one. It's usually caught before any damage is done. Because we do have other interests than just the farm. We do own another business, so how those two are related or how that affects us personally is, always a ongoing discussion with them. But when it comes to the farm business side of it, in my mind, if you don't know what it's going to cost you to grow that bushel, and you don't have a really good idea of what that crop is going to go, obviously it depends on rain, but your long-term sustainability, because if you're only growing canola on canola on canola, that's not going to last for very long. You need to mix in those crops and manage your actual cash flow to be able to do this long term. And I think that lentils is a pretty scary thought for us if we were to lose it, just because of the diseases that are coming in. We've got fields that we, not necessarily short rotated, but that need a break. So, and I don't think you can rely on new products to be able to grow what type of crop you want to grow. Like canola, having pod shatter resistance is a key for us. And we don't need the club root side of it yet. So, I mean, if we can keep a 4-year rotation, growing canola every 4 years, I think, the lentils need to be every 4 years. The cereal needs to be every 4 years, and yet you still need to make money somehow doing that. So sometimes that rotation might get pushed because, again, it's all about balancing. It's all about working with the average, and sometimes going for it in a few different years. Like I know in 2016, not that it was necessarily the wrong decision, but lentils were supported by a crop insurance at 34.5 cents and 19.5 bushels. And we took canola out of the rotation. We took quite a bit of, for me, I took all of my canola out, and the way that our land was sort of structured, I could afford to put lentils on them. So I did. And it was a crop insurance year, which sucked. But I mean, you look at some of these programs that come out, and you realize that maybe you shouldn't listen to them, because our canola went very, very good that year, and our lentils, well, I had 400 acres that got filled under in the spring, so it went zero. Crop insurance paid that year, that's for sure. But you don't know. That's, I guess, what I'm saying is you don't know. You need to be able to find the flow that works for your farm and stick to it, because it's pretty easy to chase the buck, and maybe you do that sometimes. But I mean, I think long term, if I was to have stuck with my canola on those fields, it would have made quite a bit of difference to my bottom line at the end of it. You pencil in a 40 bushel crop or a 60 bushel crop at $10 or $11 a pretty big number when you're dealing with crop insurance on the other end, but farmers don't really have a crystal ball. So
we just missed how many acres your farm has, but just tell us again how many acres your farm has, and how are you guys managing your equipment purchases on a farm like yours?
So we're 4,500 acres. About half of it is owned, half of it is rented. So, I mean, that definitely comes into play when it comes to making equipment decisions or product decisions, how we want to improve the land versus how many years we hopefully will be able to farm it. We run 2 combines. One is leased, one is purchased. And usually we buy the lease out at the end and sort of balance it that way. Also, with the structure that was in play, it made more sense to be able to split a lease payment rather than mess with depreciation and all the other ways of doing the books between 2 entities. It just didn't make sense. So we sort of, our sprayer is leased. Is the lease to buy is sort of where most of our equipment is how it's purchased, I guess. But I mean, what we can buy in cash or what we can get a short-term loan for is it's a balancing act. I mean, to be able to buy everything straight up doesn't make sense. Money is relatively cheap. Yeah, you need to balance that, but it doesn't cost. You can use someone else's money as long as you don't get too under the water. You can use someone else's money to do what you want to do, as long as you have the option, as long as you have the ability to pay that back, essentially. For me, where we're at in our farm transition from dad and mom to Shiloh and I, a lease just makes more sense, actually, just because of the smaller dollar amount. I'm a young, short-careered farmer. So, I mean, my books don't necessarily have the assets on the other side of it that maybe the banks would like, but at the same time, I try to manage that side of it too, so that the banks don't own the farm. Obviously, that's a privilege, not a right. So try and manage that side of that side of the business too, because that is important. I mean, we don't buy new equipment very often. If we do, it lasts for a long time, or it needs to last for a long time. So our equipment is anywhere from 2012 to 2015 I mean, obviously some of it's a lot older, but that's sort of where the combines and tractors, and actually tractors older than that, but it's a balancing act. I mean, there's some relatively large influencers in the ag industry that have a very different mindset than even what I do. We're sort of in the middle. You're big and you buy new, or you're established and you buy new. You don't have to worry about maintenance. You don't have to worry about technology breaking down on you. Or you're more mechanically inclined and you buy older and your payments are a fraction of the cost, because at the end of the day, you have to make money doing this. That no one gives you an award for having the prettiest equipment.
You don't get an award for the prettiest equipment?
No, I haven't got one yet. So,
oh, well, maybe you got to up your equipment game.
Maybe. I think there's definitely, it's just a balance, and it depends on where your farm is at, what your mechanical abilities are. Like I said, we're pretty decent at maintenance, but I couldn't pull an engine out of a tractor. I couldn't. I mean, it's not that I wouldn't enjoy the work or the challenge of figuring out how to do it, but that's never really been an interest to me. The plants have been an interest.
John Deere doesn't allow you to anymore.
No, well, exactly. That's the excuse I'm going to use.
How do you guys manage your precision and ag and agronomy and all that stuff? I know you guys are pretty strong on that piece.
Well, right now we've partnered with Farmers Edge on the data variable rate side of things. We're bringing Crop Pro on a little bit this year because I really really like their maps. We had them out this year for the first time, and try and filter that through for the our zoning. I feel like they have a really strong map, and it's expensive, but and my dad said it best. He said, I've been going over that piece of land for the last 40 years and I couldn't have drawn it better myself. So I think what's interesting about these companies is they need to be able to be willing to work together, because honestly, I don't care how much money these companies make off of me. I'm trying to make money using their products to give me the best return on investment. And I have a little side project going on that these two companies and some others are sort of a part of. And what I want to be able to do, and I've been talking to both these companies about, is I would like to be able to essentially just more intensely vary, or not even variable rate is sort of a misleading name in my opinion. Yes, you're varying the rate of your fertilizer, but I think that what I'm trying to do to maybe more accurately describe it is figure out what my soil can actually do, and using soil moisture probes, using weather forecasting models,
Yes.
be able to properly manage the potential that part of my soil has. And then what I'm trying to do is use that data and pull it back to actually say my crop used, 2 pounds of nitrogen to grow these amount of bushels in this area. Try and treat these polygons, these random parts of your field, and start to get to know them a little bit better. So, I mean, that's something that I'm excited about. I'm in the very, very preliminary parts of that discovery, I guess. But I think
farm, or this is for the universe at large, or what?
No, this is for me. I'm very selfish.
You should call it fertility optimization program, secret program, number 1, and just keep it hidden and hoard it.
That's pretty much what I'm trying to do, is optimize these parts of the, I don't know. It's both research and I don't even know, data collection. Like it's something that I feel like eventually it'll sort of pull everything together. In my mind, the water side of it pulls everything together. So
huge, everything.
We've had some really good years on some low amounts of rain. How much moisture is actually left? Is the water table rising? I mean, Les Henry has talked about that in some, very, very, very respectable man. He's working with some of these companies, and these soil moisture probes, I think, are so game changing that, it pulls that part of it in that was always unknown. You never knew really what was in your soil. Yeah, you could put the ball bearing on the rod and shove it in, and I've got 2 feet of moisture, and that should equal, for my type of soil, 1.2 inches of rain or whatever. But this will legitimately give us that in-season data that says, okay, well, I fertilized with my fertilizer in seed in this part of my field for a 63 bushel crop, and I have adequate moisture and my forecast looks good. I'm going to put a little bit more on this area. It's sort of where the in-season capabilities of the sprayer might come into play, or it might just be, like I said, data collection, figuring out the potential of that part of the field for that crop. So, there's a lot to chew through when it comes to what I'm trying to do, and I don't even really know what I'm trying to do. It's just,
you're going to be turning the knob up and down on the fertilizer rate throughout the field, right? Aren't you? That's kind of...
Well, exactly. I should actually make a dial instead of having to press a button 18 times.
Yeah, a big red dial or something nice to hold, ergonomically advantageous to hold on to. I think water's key, and it's probably been overlooked a lot, or maybe we didn't have the tools. And I love the concept that eventually we'll have a whole bunch of sensors in the field measuring a whole bunch of stuff real time, and that'll automatically hook us up with some of the inputs that, the commodity type inputs that we might need, and that'll work almost seamlessly or automated. But that's really big picture. But I've heard people after a variable rate presentation, and maybe we need to change our wording and marketing. It's kind of like Brad Wall said, like, whoever came up with the word like genetically modified organism?
Yeah.
Why would you want to eat anything that's called like a genetically modified organism, just by virtue of the title? But maybe we need to look more at this water piece, because the variable rate, I think people look at it and go, well, I can variable rate till the cows come home, but if it gets washed away by rain, if it doesn't rain, what did it matter?
Yeah.
How I turn my knob up and down.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Who's doing that monitoring of the moisture in the soil for you?
Well, right now I've signed up for a few that Farmers Edge has. So that's one of their beta years to dial them in a little bit. So I'll have a few of them, and I'm actually putting them where my wheat fields are. We got only 2 halves of wheat in this year, so both of them have very, very different nitrogen levels. So how we manage that, I think, will be very much dictated by what type of moisture we have. And then to tie it together with the weather is also, next to impossible. But honestly, I think that the Farmers Edge weather stations are such a key part of their portfolio that's never really talked about. It is probably the most accurate weather that I can have access to as far as prediction, modeling. It's very, very good. Not that it's rock solid, no weather is, but and then John Deere. I think I'll probably try and get some John Deere stations with through Crop Pro or with Crop Pro. So I'm really excited about this project. I think that it's sort of a learning opportunity that is so hands-on with such a big picture that I don't think I'll ever be able to get sick of it, and I'm going to need a lot of help with it. So I think that's sort of why working with 2 very, very opposite end of the spectrum VR companies is going to be a lot of fun too. So
I was going to ask you about that. Is that like the WWE? They both have the big entrances, theme music. They come in the lights, and then
I'm gonna just go back and forth between the rooms. I don't know. I don't really. I want to do this for our own farm because it's sort of how I've always viewed variable rate. But I also think that there's a lot to be gained by pulling some of these pieces together. And I don't think these companies will ever really work together. I don't have expectations of that, and I don't really care. But I think that where my mindset is on it is to be able to correctly model the soil and to be able to vary. Like right now, I only have the ability to VR the nitrogen and the sulfur. We're liquid for both, so the ratio will stay constant throughout the field. But I do think that where I want to go with this is it's the same thing as my spreadsheet. Like I've given the spreadsheet that I developed to friends and help them out. It's not like it's some big secret that I'm trying to exploit either company for profit. I mean, I don't care as long as my farm is doing the best it can. I think that's all that. I don't know. I think it's all that you can really expect of yourself or of an operation to just do better. I don't think benchmarking will necessarily help many people because it doesn't really tell you anything. Well,
you don't think benchmarking is going to help people?
It depends on what type of benchmarking you're talking about. If you're saying, okay, well, I'm the 7th of 10th best farmer in my area, what does that tell you? It doesn't tell you anything. What metrics have been used to judge you? If you're talking about benchmarking from a soil sampling perspective, then okay, yeah, you're measuring a difference and you can actually legitimately react to it.
Really? I don't know if I agree with you on that benchmarking thing, because I think there's a couple companies that are doing that, like Global Ag Risk and Farmers Edge now. That's going to be a big part of their value going into the future, because, I mean, in any business, you might not know what your blind spots are. You might not know, like, okay, what I'm doing over here is having a bigger impact than what I thought was important. And if these companies can have a big enough database and they start breaking down where you fit in terms of whatever the metrics are, like yield or cost of production per acre or whatever, and say that the guys are super successful, the top whatever percent, maybe it's 20%, or the top quarter of farmers are doing these actual things and getting these results. I think that's where we start to get actionable decisions based on all the data that's being collected ad nauseum and piling up to the moon with no good value yet. I think we're getting to actionable decisions in the industry where, like for Farmers Edge, for example, we've been talking to them about benchmarking something like biosol. We've got enough data now. If you start looking at it with all the acres that have done, and you can start looking at it from an area perspective, did it perform any better? And in my conversations with Wade, it sounded like they're getting to the point where they can tell retailers and producers, like, this is actually the best performing canola variety. This rate of nitrogen is actually the best rate of nitrogen for this set of metrics. I think we're getting actionable on the benchmarking.
No? You're getting marketable on the benchmarking. You're not getting.
I just marketed it. But you telling me that we don't have this yet?
I think that so I look at my farm command and I can see that my varieties performed in the top 5% of the area. What does that tell me?
Well, it should tell you the next step should be, like, you got to do what's successful in terms of, they should tell you. They should tell you.
Well, they're starting to break it down.
But what is the best performing yield or the best performing variety? What is the sweet spot for fertility? Like, they should be bringing other metrics in there. Just, I think globally.
Well, they are. They are. And it's not fully flyable yet. But I think, like, when you look at that information, what does it tell you? They might be you might be comparing yourself to the best farmland in the area. You might be comparing yourself to the worst farmland in the area. There's so many different things. If you take an average and say, yes, the top 10 performing varieties all had, I don't know, 112 pounds of nitrogen as an average. There's too many things that are varied to be able to make it actual. Like, you might have some farmer put more nitrogen down and that might improve his yield, but that doesn't mean that he knows why necessarily. He just is putting more nitrogen down, and he might have had a year where it paid or it didn't pay, if he got the rain or didn't get the rain. There's too many things to be able to compare myself to a farmer in a different area or a farmer in the same area. I just don't think that there's just too much going on to be able to make it real. And I know you disagree with me because you're looking at it from a point of you're taking information that it has no purpose and you're giving it a purpose. But my 2 cents is that purpose still doesn't tell you what happened. You're looking at data that says that could not correlate or could correlate, but there's too many other things behind it that could be the reason. I might have had the best year ever last year because I had more rain than my neighbor. That might be in the data. It might not. I might have had a really good year the year before. I decided to shoot the moon and I put 12 more pounds of nitrogen on average on my canola, and I didn't get rain this next year. Well, that just proves that there's, you know what I mean? That you've got too many different bars going like this to be able to make an actual real decision. Are you getting good information? You're getting better information, but I just don't think that I don't think that benchmarking is marketable. 100%.
I know. But I feel like we're doing it. I'm not qualified enough to explain it. I mean, I'm qualified enough to market it. That's my ability, but even if it doesn't exist. But I mean, I'm sure that some of these guys are starting to use this in meaningful ways. And I know that this information is starting to become valuable and actionable to retails and to producers. I just maybe need to properly define it better. And if you're a producer and you can benchmark a particular variety of canola's performance, and the big difference is now we have enough data in a given geography that it's meaningful. Whereas before you might have said, well, I can't compare my canola yields and the things I did to get to where I'm going to Terry Eberhardt's because we're so far apart. We have totally different set of circumstances. Like every farming business is so different, but this is where benchmarking will have a large enough data set and be, applying enough of these cool algorithms and abacuses and whatever that they'll actually tell you, no, you should use this.
I'm talking about treating a certain area in my field differently than the part right next door to it. And now we're talking about taking farms that are 3, 4, 12, 15,000 acres. You could compare farms with the same data set benchmarking and think you're in two different parts of the world. So now you're going to take someone's aggregated data, says my average canola yield was 50 with, 12 inches of rain, and I used 110 pounds of nitrogen per acre. My soil type is blah, blah, blah. It's just, there's too many things behind it. Varieties maybe would be a little more accessible, but you're talking about a marketable part of what benchmarking is versus, because it seems tangible, but in my opinion, it's not.
Well, I can't wait on a long enough timeline to prove you wrong. This is exciting. So I'm going to circle back. I'm going to talk to the expert. I believe it's out there. I hope it's out there because I think it'd be valuable for guys. One of the challenges that I always see for producers, and I feel for them, because I know like in a business, you have like 100 million things to do every day. You have like 50 million decisions to make. And I think, companies really need to bring simplified solutions to producers. I think it's going to help people make decisions. And I think the technology's coming, and I want to explore that.
I think you will bring the bottom part up. I don't think and your average will be higher because you'll have people saying, well, I only put down 80 pounds of N. I'm going to put down 90 pounds of N. And oh my God, I got another 5 bushels an acre. Okay. But you also didn't need benchmarking to tell you that canola reacts to nitrogen or that rain grows crops.
No, but you need to tell you with accurate enough data, which requires a large enough scale, which requires technology that's just starting to evolve, that overall inherent in one particular variety versus another, there's 5 more bushels of yield potential. That is coming.
Varieties, I agree with you. I don't necessarily, and that's what throws off the other side of it when it comes to the fertilizer. There's just too many moving parts. Are you going to improve if every grower did more what the top producers did? Would they gain yield? Yes. But I'm saying that there's just not enough. The benchmarking is not going to tell you why necessarily.
We have to talk to Dave Sullivan about this too, because what fascinates me about that business is you can throw a dart in the wall, say it lands on your hometown. They have all this information, production information, financial information, aggregated in their platform to say, this is where you fit. And I think they know what levers to push in terms of getting your gross margin per acre up. And if you talk to Dave Sullivan, I guess we have to talk to him again. I've talked to him before in this capacity, and he'll argue that, I guess I'm putting words in his mouth, technically on the internet for it's a weird dynamic, because I feel like we're having a really private conversation right now. But, talking to Dave, like, part of the whole thing is they're coaching people on this is what the top producers are doing in terms of getting their cost of production down. And I'm sure Christian would have the 5% here and 5% there. But there's got to be a formula for success, whether it's sort of individual or really universal. And sometimes I feel like it's really tough for individual producers out there that aren't working with advisors and don't have people, different technology. How do you know if you're just doing, like, if I'm allowed to do what I want to do in a day, which is my ultimate goal in life, it's probably not healthy for me. I would just do the things that I enjoy, not necessarily the things that are actually making a difference in my business. Now I'm trying to get people in my business that are much better at those areas that I'm shitty at. I don't have to do them. But I think you can take away your natural proclivities for decision making based on math. And I think there's probably algorithms out there for equipment purchasing. And I sold iron for 13 years. And I found iron to be an incredibly emotionally powerful decision for producers that, you know, sort of like #mood, like a lot of emotion went into the buying process. There's another area that could be benchmarked. And I know in a Power Farm Advisory Group, that's a big element of it when they go to, and it's different geographies and different situations, but I think one of the big things they like to talk about is a number of like, what are you spending on your iron per acre? And, you know, the results, the information there can be pretty shocking and can kind of make you at least review where you're at. Anyways, I like this debate. I want to know more. You should talk to Terry too, Jeff, about that, how he's using that program. Because last year we had 18 inches of rain in the growing season at Langeberg. And they put, I think, 50% or less of their starter fertilizer down in the air seeder. And then when the soil moisture probes kicked in, they had another 20 or 30 bushels of potential yield at that time. I mean, that can, I think, dissipate. I mean, some of the variable is you can get, we had a really significant rain event. We had 8 inches at one time that actually washed out huge areas. We're always farming the hills in Langeberg.
Yeah.
So that kind of changes the dynamic pretty quick. And I think there's maybe some calibration needed to go on there in terms of the weather events. And I don't think they'll fine tune that. But once he saw the extra potential of 20 to 30 pounds of yield, or 20, 30 bushels of yield, he had spreaders going, he had planes going, like all the input decisions after that point have a completely different quality. Because then you know you're going to be fighting disease. You're going to be requiring more nutrients to finish out the potential of the crop. And financially, it's such a risk management tool, right? And peace of mind.
Yeah.
Just awesome. I think it's a huge game changer. You're just nodding at me. Did I get into too much of a rant, Jeff, about benchmarking?
No, I did.
Okay. I feel like we had
I agree with you. I don't really want to fight you, so I'll stick to beer. I
don't
think
want to fight you either, man.
I think
You're
that
a lot taller than you look in Twitter.
I'm what?
You're a lot taller. You're a lot taller. Yeah. I was going to ask you, I find tall people really self-confident and just assured, and it's like, just, it's a physical attribute that just brings a lot of self-confidence. And like tall people are super relaxed. They're just like, it's all good.
You don't have to worry about getting hit from above anyway.
I'm really interested in the fitness side of the business that you guys are working on. And I think there's all kinds of cool analogies between agriculture and fitness. But, I mean, does one filter into the other? Or how have you guys separated that? Or is it a side hustle? Or what does that look like in your guys' lives?
Well, the supplement store is 100% Shiloh. That's her little farm. And it's growing and it's maturing. As far as a marriage between the two, that's to be continued between our status in the agriculture industry and what we're doing with the supplement side of things in the fitness world. But when it comes to the fitness side of things, that's definitely Shiloh's bread and butter. It's what she's passionate about. It's what gets her up in the morning and gets her to the gym or brings her home late at night from the gym. So what interests me about it is the business side of it, to be able to see how a completely different business operates. I mean, as a farm, you grow what you sell. As a store, you buy what you sell. So there's just so many different things to manage. I sell my crop after harvest, and the supplement side, you sell things every day. So there's just so many different things to manage. And I think that we did a pretty decent job of marrying the two styles together to make it successful and to be able to track it. But when it comes to the actual industry of supplements or of fitness, you know, Shiloh's the person to talk to on that, because that is, like I said, that's her pulse. That's what gets her going. But I think we do have a few things we are sort of talking about. Maybe we'll have to get her on the podcast to talk to you about that.
I'd love to. Yeah.
On that. So,
would she come on? Was she jealous that you were on? And
she's so busy, she doesn't even know what I do in a day. She doesn't even, if I didn't text her to say hello, she wouldn't even know that. She would just come home at night, or I'm on my way home. She's a goer.
Yeah.
So she's
she seems like she has lots of energy. I look forward to meeting her one day.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But
that's very cool. Well, I think there's a good fit there too, because I don't know. I think, you know, fitness and agriculture is something that should be advocated for too. But I guess trying to change the world every day too is it's exhausting. Like you say, maybe just go do our business and forget about it. But
I think that you are more able to do what you have aspirations of doing if you're full yourself. You know, I think that when you're healthy, you sort of emit that energy out. And, you know, if you start put too many irons in the fire, you don't know how to manage them. And I think that you need to focus your energy. And unless, for me, I don't have any aspirations of taking over the world anytime soon. I think that no, not really.
No thinking in the brain whatsoever, like not even a 20%.
No, I don't know. I'm a very highly functional introvert. I think that I find people exhausting, not in a negative way, just even if it's a really, really great conversation, it'll take me a while. That's sort of the way it was with the egg Twitter thing. Like, it was just so many great things, so many people to meet, to interact with. It's just, that's the way that I'm wired. Are you exhausted by this podcast right now? Are you feeling exhausted and tired? Well, I'm merely trying to drag it out so that we can beat Terry.
In
an hour and a half. It's been an hour and 40. So.
Well, I know why we talk for an hour and a half, me and Terry, because basically we say the same thing over and over 3 times, just 4 different ways, and it's got to be exhausting to listen to. But actually, I thought his podcast was pretty. You know, I don't talk to Terry like that, and people ask me what kind of air seeders they're using or what are they doing. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm talking to Terry about, you know, and what I love is, like, this is a conversation that we might have had at the kitchen table years ago if I was trying to sell you a John Deere sprayer. Yeah. And then at the end of it, I'd be like, well, hey, it's going to be whatever amount of money, lease payments per year. And hopefully would have done the deal. But I've had so many awesome conversations with producers at the kitchen table over the years. It's been such a blessing. And it's almost like the biggest value I realized over time was, like, the business side of it is, you know, facilitates these relationships, and we're so fortunate to be connected. But I totally relate, and I just, on some level, it's super exciting concept to have, like, a, you know, a hippie, you know, type agricultural festival at your home for a weekend. On another level, it's like a nightmare of, like, when are these people going to go home?
Well, it wasn't even like that side of it too was we'd never done it before. We didn't know who was showing up until they showed up. I mean, we had people coming and then they didn't come, and you had people that didn't say they said they weren't coming that showed up. And do we have enough food? Is the generator going to work? Is the microphone going to work? Is anyone going to want to go on the tour? Is the bus going to show up? Did the hotel rooms get booked okay? Like, just an absolute flood. It was like we basically planned a wedding. It was that much. It was that intensive of a weekend. Like, everything was thought of, and that I'm not taking any credit for that side of it. That was Shiloh. But when it comes to the actual doing it, pulling it together as far as getting everything there, that was me. And when it all worked, like when Janelle was singing and everyone was having a good time, and the pig showed up and we ate, and everyone was having a good time, and everyone, you could hear the laughing, you hear the music, And I was just like, I'm done. I am drained. And I think that was mostly because of whether it was going to work or not. Whereas,
Right.
now we know it's going to be a good time because it was a good time. And I think that just that whole type of environment can completely flip and be almost like an energy sink, and everyone just sort of gets a bit of a good time from it. It was an absolutely great weekend. So
I completely agree. Like I really share that sentiment. And one of the things I've been considering lately too is, being introverted is great, but really not a lot of the great things in life are accomplished by being introverted, being on your own. A lot of the value comes from that extroverted activity. So I'm naturally an introvert, but over the years, just kind of increase the reps, it's like working out, and things take less and less energy. You get more and more energized about them. They get easier. Like we've done events after event after event. We just had a summit with 80 people, like 2 days, talk about being on but it's just gotten so easy and enjoyable because the process is there. You can get through it. You've conditioned yourself up to it. And then you're just like, that was the most amazing thing, to be part of a community and really enjoyable in what you guys have created. I mean, so many people are really, really into it. And you've got these depth of relationships, like just looking on social media, how you guys talk back and forth. People are really excited about it and get a lot of value from it, especially I think in the agriculture community, because it's kind of unique. We are physically separated, and often think about producers that are on the farm out by themselves, working in the house, at the computer, at the books or whatever in the winter. And maybe things look great. Maybe things don't look as good as you hoped, but got to have a pretty strong constitution to get through all the ups and downs of life. And farming is a challenging business, like many other things, but we actually get so much stronger by having those social chops and having a support network. And I love all the stuff that's going on in agriculture, including Ag Twitter, which I guess, I don't know, 10 years ago might not even been physically possible, because I don't know, was Twitter a thing?
I think I've only been on Twitter for 7 years.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the beginning of it, but
no, I don't. I think it's just in the last couple of years that all this stuff has sort of been possible. And, a lot of people complain about social media on a bunch of different levels, and I get it. I share the sentiment, but if you want to be Mr. or Mrs. Glass is half full, I mean, look at the benefits. It's been amazing. So good for you guys. And I'd love to get out there. It'd be a lot of fun one year. So I don't know. I think you beat Terry.
I definitely beat Terry.
I feel like we need to have like a 4-part series or something.
Yeah. You could release it in different weeks, one for every week of the month.
Well, what I've done with Terry is I've got almost like a month worth of daily clips that can go out. And I don't know if people get sick of it and unfollow or whatever, but I feel like people have the opportunity to listen to very particular segments, whatever interests them, just piecemeal, because who can digest? I mean, there's the odd guy or the odd gal. I don't know. I got really into the long form of podcasting at different times. And I think for farmers, their unique thing is you can be in the tractor, and a 3-hour podcast makes freaking sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. When I'm in a tractor, I must be in and out of it more than most people, because I don't have time, and my ears are funny shaped. So like,
are they?
I don't
like genetically, or was there some sort of
earphones? My ear hole's too small.
Ear hole's too small for phone.
I have the same problem.
Yeah.
The little earbuds.
Yeah, they don't fit in my ear. Even like the squishy ones that you can like shove in your ear, they don't fit. They just sort of, my ear pushes them out. So actually, my birthday, my parents gave me Bluetooth, like noise canceling, cordless headphones, like muffler, like ear mufflers or whatever you call them, so they cancel the noise out. So I'll actually be able to hear things in the tractor now. It's going to be neat.
My ear canals are regular size. They fit a thing in there.
I think it's probably a sign of higher intelligence with a small ear.
Well,
lobe.
based on my benchmarking algorithms I'm developing, obviously it must be. This is like Einstein's theory of relativity. It's just agriculture.
Be close anyway.
It's like a principle of the universe that we just haven't discovered yet.
Mm-hmm.
There was something else I was going to say. I can't remember what it was, though. Which is a really bad story, I guess, at the end of the day, if that's all it is. But no, I appreciate you coming on so much. It's very cool. It's very cool, man, to talk to you. Like, always enjoy it, and I feel like we're gonna have to do it again. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this podcast is kind of good excuse to have these conversations. Yeah. So, thanks for being on, and I don't know what else to say. Alyssa, do you have anything to add, or is there any kind of final message you're feeling?
You guys have thoroughly covered some topics.
You know, we could talk a lot longer too. But no, I appreciate it, Jeff. Anything else you want to add? I guess it's like your huge fan base. I wanted to ask you like what it's like being like a secret agent. I get the sense there's just an element of you. It's like an enigma, like it's mysterious, like underneath that suave exterior, there's some deep things going on. For what unknown motivations we don't know.
Well, I'll let you know one secret. If I do something, there's usually another reason why I'm doing it. So let that sink into your, yeah.
Exactly. That's, I think, the overarching message of this whole podcast.
Yep. And it's probably selfish. That's the other thing. I'm a very selfish person.
Well, I think we've established you're incredibly selfish, like in terms of benchmarking on the human race. You're selfish.
I'm not selfish as in conceited. I'm selfish as in not that I don't care as in I don't want you to be good. I just don't care. That's not my focus. You know what I mean?
That's a very lovable feature about you. I think that's why people like you and Donald Trump. You and Donald Trump, I think you share that in common. And
I have a lot more hair than Donald Trump, though.
I don't know, man. The guy is like 70, and he has a frock that would make a lot of people envious, I guess, in some universe. But he's got pretty good hair for 70. But yeah, you got that thick. What are you like, like Norseman or Norwegian? Did you do your 23andMe, the genetic test?
No, we haven't done it yet.
Are you?
I'm Swedish, Norwegian, English, and Scottish.
I knew you got that Viking blood.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm a giant.
You'd be a great extra on that Viking series.
Mm-hmm. And I actually shaved my beard yesterday a little bit. I trimmed it. It was nice and bushy before.
Yeah, I'm not a big beard guy. I don't know if I would be able to pull that off. Alyssa, what do you think of his beard? Is that a good move for a guy like in his demographic?
Oh, white.
Oh,
it's distinctive.
Very white.
Graphic.
Look at that.
Like one of those Facebook videos where it's like this is graphic content. You have to click on it to actually open it, and then it's like boom, there's Jeff's beard. Do you like beards, Alyssa? Is that a thing?
I think I like beards as much as the next person. I think they're kind of a fad with them right now. I'm not really understanding that one, but
I just hate shaving. That's why I have a beard.
I'm gonna benchmark beard likabilities, and I'm gonna get back to you guys on this podcast about that.
Good luck.
Well, this is the thing with you, Jeff. I know simultaneously that you're really behind me and you care and you want me to succeed. On the other hand, you really don't care at all.
No, and it's not my focus. Well, I'm more than willing to help out. I'm not gonna hold your hand. Sorry, Dan.
Oh, I was kind of hoping we could hold hands at some point. I mean, in a purely masculine heterosexual way, we could hold hands.
Heterosexual life mates.
Yeah. Hey, guess who I'm having on the podcast next? I'm supposed to actually talk to him at 1. Corey Wilness.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. It's just, that'll be really interesting. It'll be a lot of fun. So I'll tell him what you said.
Yeah, all good things. That's what I mean. I feel like there's lots of companies. I guess what I'm trying to do is take the best. It's going to be expensive, more expensive than just going with one company or no companies, obviously. But I feel like the dollar amount is worth it. I feel like there's definitely a return, even if it's not dollar amount, is to be able to find out the information and be able to at least know some of these things that have never really been figured out on our farm anyway. I'm sure this is what they do in the States every day, more, be able to top dress to the field's potential. And there's just so many more things, so many more variables here that it's just you need to start somewhere. And that's sort of where the broad spectrum of information that I'm trying to figure out is for a very small purpose. But I think it'll be fun working with Corey and working with Farmer's Edge and John Deere and the other people involved in the farm, GMAX, and Dad.
I think you have to pull in the different pieces. You can't just expect any one company to have all the answer. Maybe there will be in the future, but there's definitely the best of what everybody's doing, and it's going to evolve. But the be interesting question is if where we're at in terms of innovation and implementation and agricultural practices in the United States. And I feel like sometimes because we have to compete so hard, like in terms of margin per acre in Canada, on the prairies, like in Saskatchewan, like broad acre, like wheat and canola, you got to hustle, baby, to make it. Yeah. You got to be damn good. And we talked about it, we alluded to it earlier. If you go to some areas where bushels are bigger, the organic matter is higher, it's a little bit easier. Farms are smaller, and then they just don't innovate the same way. Yeah. So I feel like Saskatchewan, and I know Alberta is a different culture, and so is Manitoba, and they each have their strengths. But I really feel like Saskatchewan's an incredible place for innovation. I'm not just saying that to market this podcast, or anything like that. I really believe that from what I've seen, but. That'd be an interesting thing. I know one thing from the presentation on that supercluster about proteins, there's actually way, way, way less research dollars being spent in Canada on this kind of thing than you'd ever imagine. Like we're in the world, like we're behind like Croatia. And I think some of the reasoning was that, literally, it's kind of what? Like our bar chart smaller than Croatia? Like I'll give you a small man complex. But I think the reality is we're right next to such a huge industry in the States. Maybe it's not a fair comparison because we get so much, going back and forth over the border, right? We'll benchmark it. We will benchmark this, and we'll make a graph chart with infographics and post it on Twitter. You can retweet it.
Done.
High fives.
You did.
Friendly man. Man. No, we're not going to hold hands. But when am I going to see you next? You're not coming to Crop Connect because you're not cool enough, or you're too cool for Manitoba, I guess. Too cool for school.
I'm not allowed in Manitoba.
I bet you're banned for various different activities in your youth.
Pretty much.
Ag in Motion?
Yeah, I'll be at Ag in Motion. That's a long time. That's
Farm Progress? Dude, this happens.
Farm Progress will probably be at one of the days anyway. Charlotte and I usually drive around for a day.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anything really like until Farm Progress or Ag in Motion, but hopefully we can connect then. Chat some more. Thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it. Very enlightening.
You bet.
It's nice meeting you.
You too.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later, Jack.
See you later.
Yeah, bye for now. I guess we need to end this.